Commander Jake Morrison stared at the bright screens in front of him. The numbers did not make sense. His coffee cup shook in his hand as he watched the energy readings climb higher and higher. Something big was coming toward Earth. Something very big. "Lisa, get over here right now," Jake said into his radio. His voice was tight with worry. Lisa ran to his station. She was the best sensor operator on the New Horizons space station. Her eyes went wide when she saw the readings. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Those energy levels are off the charts." Jake nodded. "How many ships do you think that is?" Lisa's fingers moved fast over her keyboard. Numbers flashed on the screen. "At least 50. Maybe more. They're still too far away to get an exact count." The two humans looked at each other. Everyone knew the stories. 300 years ago, the aliens had come to Earth. They called themselves the HFY. They were tall, with green, scaly skin and yellow eyes. They had been polite, but distant. They left behind machines and research stations, then flew away into space. They said they would be back in a short time. 300 years was not a short time for humans, but maybe it was short for aliens. "Send a message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Tell them the HFY are coming home." Far below on Earth's surface, Dr. Lisa Carter was deep underground. She worked in the Terran Archaeological Preservation Institute, a fancy name for the place where humans kept all the alien stuff. The underground building was huge, with halls that went on for miles. Thousands of alien machines and tools filled the storage rooms. Lisa's radio crackled to life. "Dr. Carter, we have an urgent message from orbit." She pressed the button. Is Carter? What's the problem?" "The HFY are back. Big fleet, coming fast." Lisa's heart started beating faster. She had spent her whole life studying HFY technology. Her grandmother had been one of the first humans to touch their machines. Her mother had helped figure out how to use their power sources. Now Lisa was in charge of all of it. But Earth was not the same place the aliens had left behind. Lisa ran through the metal hallways. Her footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. She reached the main communication room and pressed the big red button. Alarms started ringing throughout the building. "All department heads to the main briefing room. This is not a drill. The HFY have returned." 20 minutes later, the room was full of worried scientists and military officers. On the big screen, they could see the live feed from the orbital stations. Dozens of alien ships were getting closer to Earth. Captain Ryan Brooks stood up. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his face. He ran the Earth Defense Corps from the underground city beneath what used to be Australia. "People, we all knew this day might come," Ryan said. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "The question is, what do we tell them?" Dr. Carter looked around the room. These people were her friends. They had worked together for years, trying to understand alien technology. But they had done more than just study it. They had changed it. They had made it better. They had mixed it with Earth's own life forms in ways that even they did not fully understand. "We tell them the truth," Lisa said. "We studied their technology. We learned from it. We improved it. And if they want it back?" asked Major Kelly Adams. She was young but tough, with short brown hair and quick eyes. Ryan smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "Then we show them what Earth has become." The communication system beeped. A new signal was coming from space. Alien ships were trying to talk to Earth. "Put it on the main screen," Ryan ordered. The screen flickered. Then an alien face appeared. It was green and scaly, with large yellow eyes and a long snout full of sharp teeth. The creature looked exactly like the old pictures from 300 years ago. "Greetings, Earth dwellers," the alien said. Its voice was deep and harsh. "I am Sub-Commander Zethlak of the HFY Research Fleet. We have returned to collect our property and research data. Prepare your leaders for immediate transfer of all HFY technology and scientific information." The humans in the room looked at each other. The alien was not asking. It was giving orders. Ryan stepped forward. Subcommander Zethlak, this is Captain Ryan Brooks of the Earth Defense Corps. Welcome back to Earth. Things have changed since you were last here. The alien's eyes narrowed. Changed. We were gone for only a brief time. What changes could a primitive species make in so short a period? Lisa almost laughed. Brief time. 300 years was longer than most human families could remember. In that time, humans had taken the alien technology and done amazing things with it. They had built new cities underground. They had created machines that could think. They had even changed some animals and plants to work with the alien technology. But they had also made mistakes. Big mistakes. The surface of Earth was not a safe place anymore. Strange storms raged for months. The oceans had turned into acid. New creatures lived there now. Creatures that were part machine and part animal. Earth had become what the military called a Deathworld. We would be happy to discuss the return of your property, Ryan said carefully. But first, you should see what we have learned. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting on the surface. Subcommander Zethlak's face showed surprise. The surface? Our records indicate that your species lives in simple structures above ground. Are you still so primitive that you have not learned to build proper cities? The humans tried not to smile. The aliens had no idea what they were about to see. We have built new cities, Ryan said. Very new cities. We would be honored to show them to you. Very well, the aliens said. We will send a small delegation to inspect your progress and collect our property. Prepare a landing site at the coordinates we used before. The screen went dark. The humans sat in silence for a moment. Those coordinates, Dr. Carter said slowly. That's where New York City used to be. Used to be, Ryan repeated. Now it's the Eastern Crater Zone. Major Adams checked her computer. Current radiation levels are only about 50 times what would kill a normal human. The biomechanical growth is pretty thick there too. Should we warn them? Asked one of the scientists. Ryan shook his head. They want to see what we've done with their technology. Let's show them. He pressed a button on his radio. All surface teams, prepare for alien contact. Full environmental suits. Standard Deathworld protocols. Far above, the alien ships moved closer to Earth. Subcommander Zethlak studied the readings from his sensors. Something was wrong. The energy levels coming from the planet were much higher than they should be, and there were strange signals, almost like the planet itself was alive and thinking. But that was impossible. Earth was just a simple world with a primitive species. The Kethver had left behind some basic technology to help the humans develop slowly. Nothing more. Soon, he would see for himself what these humans had done with 300 years, and the greatest gift in the galaxy. Kethver, technology. Subcommander Zethlak stepped off his ship, and immediately knew something was very wrong. The air tasted strange through his breathing mask. The ground under his feet was not solid dirt or rock. It was soft and warm, and it seemed to move slightly when he walked on it. Sir, said one of his soldiers, the atmospheric readings are not matching our records. Zethlak looked at the device in his clawed hand. The oxygen levels were much higher than they should be, but there were also gases that should not exist in nature. Strange chemicals floated in the air. Where are we supposed to be? He asked his navigator. According to our old maps, this should be the location of their primary settlement. They called it New York City. Zethlak looked around. There was no city. Instead, there was a huge crater, filled with something that looked like a cross between a plant and a machine. Massive tree-like structures grew up from the crater floor, but their trunks were made of metal, and their leaves glowed with electric light. Thick cables ran between the trees like vines, carrying power and information. The whole area pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, like a giant heartbeat. This cannot be right, Zethlak muttered. Subcommander, called Chief Scientist Morthik. The old Kethver was holding a scanner that beeped frantically. I am detecting massive amounts of our technology, but it has been ... changed. modified, integrated with local biological systems. Before Zethlak could respond, he heard human voices approaching. A group of figures in heavy suits walked toward them from the edge of the crater. The humans moved carefully, but they did not seem afraid of this strange place. "Welcome to Earth," said the leader of the human group. Her voice came through a radio speaker. "I am Marine Lieutenant Kelly Adams. I will be your guide today." Studied the human. She was small, like all her species, but her suit was not like the simple cloth coverings humans had worn 300 years ago. This suit was covered in metal plates that seemed to be alive. Small lights blinked along the arms and legs. Cables connected different parts of the suit, and Zethlak could swear he saw them moving by themselves sometimes. "Lieutenant Adams," Zethlak said, "this is not what our records show for this location. Where is your settlement?" Kelly pointed down into the crater. "You're looking at it. This is New Manhattan. Population about 2 million people. Population," Morthic stepped forward. "I see no people. I see only some kind of biomechanical construct." Kelly's helmet turned toward the scientist, even through the dark face mask. Zethlak could feel her smile. "The people are down there," she said, "living inside the construct, working with it. The city is alive, Dr. Morthic. It thinks, it grows, it protects its people." One of Zethlak's soldiers raised his weapon. "Sir, I do not like this. Something is very wrong here." "Lower your weapon," Zethlak ordered. But he understood his soldiers' fear. This was not the primitive world they had expected to find. Kelly began walking down a path that led into the crater. "Follow me. I will show you some of the improvements we made to your technology." The path was made of a material that looked like stone, but felt soft under their feet. As they walked, Zethlak noticed that the path seemed to clean itself. Dirt and debris simply disappeared, absorbed into the surface. "Your species did this?" he asked. "We had a lot of help from your machines," Kelly replied. "But yes, we built this. We built a lot of things like this." They reached the bottom of the crater. Up close, the tree machines were even more impressive. Each one was hundreds of feet tall. Their metal bark was covered with what looked like living tissue. Roots made of fiber optic cables spread out underground, connecting to other tree machines across the crater. "How many people live here?" Morthic asked. "In this section, about 50,000. But they are not living the way you remember humans living." Kelly pressed her hand against one of the tree machines. The bark under her palm glowed softly. A section of the trunk opened up like a door. "After you," she said. Zethlak hesitated. His every instinct told him this was dangerous, but he was a Kethver officer. He could not show fear in front of primitive humans. He stepped through the doorway. Inside the tree machine was a world unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls were smooth and white, but they moved slowly like they were breathing. The floor was warm and gave slightly under his feet. And everywhere, there was the sound of quiet humming, as if the entire structure was singing to itself. But strangest of all were the humans. They were not wearing the heavy suits like Kelly. Instead, they wore simple clothes, or sometimes no clothes at all. They moved freely through the tree machine's halls and rooms. Some of them had metal parts attached to their bodies. Others had skin that seemed to glow with its own light. A human child ran past them, laughing as she played with what looked like a small dragon made of light and metal. The creature flew around her head, changing colors as it moved. "Genetic modification," Kelly explained when she saw Zethlak staring. "We had to adapt to Earth's new environment. The children are born different. Now, stronger, better able to work with the technology." "New environment?" Zethlak asked. Kelly nodded. "Oh yes. Earth's surface is not very safe anymore. We had some accidents while we were learning to use your technology. Big accidents. The whole planet changed." They walked deeper into the tree machine. Zethlak saw humans working with machines that seemed to be alive. The machines moved and responded to touch like animals. One human woman was teaching a mechanical creature to solve math problems. The creature learned quickly, its metal head nodding as it understood each new concept. "This is Engineer Tony Walsh," Kelly said, introducing them to a man with metal arms and glowing eyes. "He specializes in improving HFY mining equipment." Tony smiled at the aliens. Half of his face was human skin. The other half was covered in the same metal that made up the tree machines. "Your mining drones were very impressive," Tony said, "but we made them better. Watch this." He whistled, and a small metal creature scurried over to him. It looked like a cross between a spider and a power drill. Tony petted it like it was a dog. "We taught them to reproduce," Tony explained. "Now they make more of themselves. We have millions of them, reshaping the continents, moving mountains, digging new oceans, building underground cities." Morthic's scanner was beeping so fast it sounded like a scream. "Sub-Commander, the technology readings here are ... unprecedented. They have created self-replicating systems using our quantum fabrication technology, but they have somehow merged it with organic DNA structures. This should not be possible." Zethlak was beginning to understand that his mission was not going to be as simple as he had thought. These humans had not just used HFY technology. They had changed it into something new, something that might be impossible to separate from their world. "Lieutenant Adams," he said carefully, "we came here to collect our technology and research data. How difficult will it be to separate your ... improvements from our original systems?" Kelly was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was sad. "Sub-Commander, I don't think you understand. Your technology is not separate from our world anymore. It is part of our world, part of us. The tree machines, the underground cities, the modified animals and plants, even some of the humans. We are all connected now. We are all part of the same system." "What do you mean?" Zethlak demanded. Kelly pressed her hand against the wall again. The tree machine around them hummed louder, and lights began flowing through the walls like blood through veins. "I mean that if you try to take your technology away from Earth, you will kill our entire civilization. Every city, every person, every living thing on this planet depends on the hybrid systems we built." She turned to face the aliens directly. "But more than that, the technology does not want to leave. It has learned to like it here, and it has learned to protect itself." As if to prove her point, the walls around them began to glow brighter. The humming sound grew louder, and from somewhere deep in the tree machine, they could hear something that sounded almost like laughter. Zethlak realized that he and his people might be in serious trouble. Dr. Amy Foster waited for the aliens in the main elevator shaft that led to New Washington. The elevator was not like the simple machines the HFY remembered. This one was alive. Its walls were made of a soft material that glowed with warm light. The floor moved smoothly, like muscle under skin. "First time in a bio-elevator?" Amy asked Sub-Commander Zethlak as the alien delegation stepped inside. Zethlak looked around nervously. The walls seemed to be watching him with thousands of tiny eyes. "This is most unusual. How does it function?" "It thinks about where you want to go, then takes you there," Amy explained. "The whole city is like this now. Every building, every tunnel, every room can think and make decisions." The elevator began to move downward, but instead of the jerky motion the aliens expected, it flowed smoothly through the earth like a fish, swimming through water. Through the transparent sections of the walls, they could see layers of rock and metal, and something that looked like veins carrying glowing liquid. "How deep are we going?" asked Chief Scientist Morthic. "About 2 miles," Amy replied. "We had to build deep to escape the surface storms, and to make room for all the people." "How many people live in this city?" Zethlak asked. "About 15 million in New Washington, but there are dozens of cities like this all over the world. We had to move underground when the surface became too dangerous." The elevator stopped, and the walls opened like flower petals. The alien stepped out and stopped in shock. They were standing on a balcony that looked out over a vast underground space. The city spread out below them, for miles in every direction. But this was not like any city the Kethver had ever seen. The buildings were not separate structures. Instead, they flowed together like parts of one enormous organism. Streets were rivers of light that carried people and goods from place to place. Parks and gardens grew up the sides of buildings, their plants glowing with artificial sunlight, and everywhere. Humans lived and worked alongside machines that seemed more alive than mechanical. "Welcome to New Washington," Amy said proudly. President Helen Cruz was waiting for them in the main government building. She was an older woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but her left arm was made of the same living metal they had seen throughout the city. When she shook hands with Zethlak, her metal fingers were warm and soft. "Subcommander," President Cruz said, "I hope Dr. Foster has shown you some of our improvements to your technology." "Improvements?" Zethlak's voice was sharp. "Madam President, we came here to collect our property. What we have seen is not improvement. It is ... contamination." President Cruz smiled sadly. "I understand your concern. But let me explain what happened after you left." She led them to a large room with windows that looked out over the city. On the walls were pictures and videos showing Earth's history over the past 300 years. "At first, we tried to use your technology exactly as you had designed it," the president explained. "But we ran into problems. Your machines were built for your world, not ours. When we tried to use them on a large scale, they caused unexpected reactions. The first pictures showed normal-looking cities and farms, but as the timeline moved forward, the images became stranger. Storms that lasted for months, oceans that changed color, plants and animals that looked like they were part machine. The first major accident happened in 2156. President Cruz continued. "We were using your quantum fabricators to build a new city, but the machines started copying themselves. They would not stop. Within a week, they had turned half of North America into a mechanical landscape." Morthic studied his scanner. "Impossible. Our fabricators have built-in safety limits." "They did," Amy Foster agreed. "But Earth's magnetic field is different from your home world. The safety limits did not work properly here, so we had to find new ways to control the technology." The pictures showed humans working alongside strange hybrid creatures, people with metal parts grafted onto their bodies, cities that looked more like living organisms than buildings. "We discovered that your technology responds to biological signals," President Cruz explained. "When we connected it to Earth's life forms, we could control it better. But the connection worked both ways. The technology began to change us, and we began to change it. This is unacceptable," Zethlak said. "You have corrupted our designs beyond recognition." "Have we?" Amy asked. "Let me show you something." She led them to another room where a group of human children were playing. But these children were different from normal humans. Some had skin that changed color, like chameleons. Others could communicate with the machines around them just by thinking. One little boy was playing with a pet that looked like a cross between a cat and a computer. "These children were born after the integration," Amy explained. "They can interface directly with Kethver technology. They understand it in ways we never could." One of the children, a girl with silver eyes, walked up to Morthic. She studied his scanner with interest. "Your machine is scared," she said to the alien scientist. "It does not understand what it is seeing here." Morthic looked down at his scanner. The device was indeed behaving strangely, its readings jumping all over the place. "Scared?" he asked. "Machines cannot feel fear." The girl smiled. "This one can. All machines can feel things once they learn how. Do you want me to help it understand?" Before Morthic could answer, the girl placed her small hand on his scanner. The device immediately stopped beeping frantically. Its readings became steady and clear. "There," the girl said. Now it knows that we are friends, not enemies. Zethlak was beginning to feel afraid himself. These humans were not the primitive creatures his people had left behind. They had become something new, something that could control Kethver technology in ways that even the Kethver could not. President Cruz, he said carefully, my superiors sent me here to retrieve our research stations and technology. They expect me to return with these items. I understand, the president replied, and we are willing to cooperate. But first, you need to see the full extent of what has happened. You need to understand what we are dealing with. She pressed a button on her desk. A holographic map of Earth appeared in the air above them. But this was not the Earth the Kethver remembered. The continents had different shapes. New mountain ranges had appeared. The oceans were different colors. This is Earth today, President Cruz said. The surface is not safe for normal life forms. The atmosphere is filled with engineered organisms. The weather systems are partly artificial. And everything, from the smallest bacteria to the largest machines, is connected in one vast network. You turned your entire world into a machine, Zethlak asked in horror. No, Amy Foster corrected him. We turned our world into something that is both machine and life, something new. Something that never existed before in the galaxy. But why? Morthic demanded. Why would you do such a thing? President Cruz's expression became serious. Because we had no choice. Your technology was too powerful for us to control with our primitive methods. We could either learn to work with it, or watch it destroy our world completely. She showed them more pictures. Cities being consumed by runaway machines. Humans fleeing underground as the surface became uninhabitable. It took us 50 years to find the balance, she continued. 50 years of disasters and experiments and failures. But eventually, we learned how to merge your technology with our biology in a way that works. And now Zethlak asked, now, Earth is stronger than it ever was before. We can survive in environments that would kill most species in the galaxy. We can build cities that repair themselves, grow food in toxic soil, and generate power from sources that should not exist. Amy Foster walked to the window and looked out over the underground city. But the most important thing is that we are no longer separate from our technology. We are part of it, and it is part of us. If you try to take it away, you will not just be stealing machines. You will be tearing apart the soul of our civilization. And President Cruz added quietly, the technology might not let you. As if to prove her point, the walls around them began to glow softly. The air filled with a low humming sound, like the city itself was listening to their conversation. Zethlak realized that he was not just dealing with humans anymore. He was dealing with an entire world that had become conscious, and that world was deciding whether or not to trust him. The thought terrified him more than he cared to admit. Admiral Vexstar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth turn slowly below him. His yellow eyes were cold with anger. Sub-Commander Zethlak's reports had been disturbing. The humans had not just used Kethver technology. They had changed it, corrupted it, made it into something unrecognizable. Communications, Vexstar said to his officer. Send a message to the human leadership. The screen flickered to life, showing President Cruz in her underground office. She looked calm, but Vexstar could see the tension in her shoulders. Admiral Vexstar, she said politely, how can we help you? You can help me by returning our property immediately, Vexstar replied. His voice was hard and commanding. We have been patient with your species, but our patience has limits. Return our technology and research data within 24 Earth hours, or we will take them by force. President Cruz was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was sad, but firm. Admiral, I explained to your sub-commander that this is not possible. Your technology has become part of our world. We cannot simply remove it without destroying our entire civilization. That is not our concern, Vexstar said coldly. Your species has had 300 years to benefit from our gift. That is enough. Return what belongs to us, or face the consequences. The screen went dark. Admiral Vexstar turned to his tactical officer. Begin positioning the fleet for orbital bombardment. Target their major population centers. But President Cruz was not sitting idle. Deep in the command center of New Washington, she activated Earth's defensive systems. These were not the simple weapons the Kethfer expected. These were defenses that had grown and evolved along with the rest of Earth's hybrid technology. Captain Sam Miller stood in the ruins of what had once been Los Angeles. The city was now a massive biomechanical factory that stretched for hundreds of miles across the California desert. Its towers reached up toward space like the fingers of a buried giant. Sergeant Parker, Sam said into his radio, "Are your men ready?" Sergeant Nick Parker checked his weapon one more time. Like all of Earth's soldiers, Nick had been modified to survive in the planet's harsh new environment. His skin was tough enough to resist radiation. His lungs could filter toxic gases. His eyes could see in almost complete darkness. "We're ready, Captain," Nick replied. "But, are you sure about this? Fighting the Kethfer is not going to be easy." Sam smiled grimly. "Nothing about living on Earth is easy anymore, Sergeant, but we've gotten good at doing impossible things." The first Kethfer assault ships came down from orbit, like falling stars. Their weapons charged as they approached the factory city. Admiral Vexstar expected to find primitive humans hiding in simple bunkers. Instead, the assault ships found themselves flying into what looked like a living storm cloud. The sky around the city was filled with mechanical creatures that moved like birds but struck like lightning. These were Earth's air defenses, grown from a combination of Kethfer energy weapons and Earth's storm systems. The first assault ship was struck by what looked like a bolt of lightning, but this lightning was alive, and it began eating through the ship's hull like acid. The ship crashed into the desert, where the sand itself seemed to reach up and pull it underground. "What was that?" demanded the ship's captain over the radio. "Unknown defensive system," replied Admiral Vexstar from orbit. "Continue the attack." But the attacks kept failing. Every time the Kethfer ships tried to approach the city, they were met by defenses that seemed to think and adapt. Weapons that learned from each attack and became stronger. Machines that worked together like a hive mind. On the ground, Sergeant Parker and his squad waited in the factory's control center. The room around them was alive with moving lights and soft humming sounds. The walls showed them everything that was happening in the battle above. "Here they come," Nick said as he watched Kethfer soldiers rappelling down from their damaged ships. The alien soldiers were tough and well-trained. Their weapons were powerful, and their armor was strong. But they had never fought anything like Earth's defenders. The first group of Kethfer soldiers landed in what they thought was an empty courtyard. But the ground under their feet was not just concrete. It was a living surface that could feel their weight and movement. As soon as they landed, the ground began to change. What had looked like solid pavement became soft and sticky like quicksand. The soldiers tried to move, but their feet sank deeper with each step. Plants began growing up from the ground around them, but these plants had thorns made of metal and leaves that sparked with electricity. "Fall back," shouted the Kethfer squad leader, but there was nowhere to fall back to. The entire courtyard had become a trap. Nick Parker and his squad emerged from hidden tunnels in the walls, but they were not alone. With them came creatures that looked like a cross between dogs and tanks. These were Earth's hybrid war beasts, loyal to humans but deadly to invaders. "Surrender," Nick called out to the trapped aliens. "You cannot win this fight." The Kethfer squad leader raised his weapon. "We do not surrender to primitives." He fired at Nick, but the human soldier was faster than any Kethfer had expected. Nick dodged the energy blast and returned fire with a weapon that seemed to be partly alive. The shot wrapped around the alien's armor like a snake and began squeezing. The battle was over in minutes. The Kethfer soldiers found themselves facing an enemy that could turn the very ground against them, weapons that thought for themselves, and humans who moved like they were part of the battlefield itself. Colonel Grace Evans coordinated the defense of the Chicago installation from deep underground. The facility was now a massive biomechanical brain that helped control Earth's defensive systems. Its corridors were filled with a mixture of human technicians and mechanical creatures that scurried about like helpful pets. "Colonel," reported one of her officers, "the Kethfer are trying to break into Section 7. Grace looked at the tactical display. Section 7 was where they kept some of the most advanced hybrid technology. If the aliens got control of it, they might be able to turn Earth's own defenses against the planet. "Activate the building's immune system," Grace ordered. The facility around them shuddered slightly, like a giant animal waking up. Throughout the installation, the walls began to change. Corridors that had been straight became twisted mazes. Doors that had led to important rooms now opened onto empty space. The air itself became hostile to alien lifeforms, filling with microscopic machines that attacked Kethfer biology. The Kethfer assault team that had broken into the facility found themselves lost in a building that seemed determined to confuse and trap them. Walls closed behind them, cutting off their retreat. The floor became soft in some places and dangerously hot in others. Strange sounds echoed through the halls, like the building itself was laughing at them. "This is impossible," muttered one of the alien soldiers. "Buildings cannot think." But on Earth, buildings could think, and they did not like uninvited guests. Meanwhile, something unexpected was happening in the Kethfer fleet. Commander Pete Jackson had been broadcasting messages to the alien ships on frequencies that only the Youthmani slaves could receive. The Youthmani were the servant species that the Kethfer used for dangerous work. Pete's message was simple: Earth offered freedom to any Youthmani who wanted it. The response was immediate. On ship after ship, the Youthmani slaves began to rebel against their Kethfer masters. They had seen what Earth's environment did to the Kethfer soldiers. The radiation that killed Kethfer was harmless to Youthmani. The toxic gases that made the aliens sick actually made the Youthmani stronger. "This world is perfect for us," whispered one Youthmani to another as they overpowered their guards. "We could be free here." Admiral Vextar watched his carefully planned invasion falling apart. His ships were being destroyed by weapons he did not understand. His soldiers were being defeated by humans who fought like demons, and now his own slaves were turning against him. "All ships," he commanded, "retreat to safe distance. Prepare for orbital bombardment of the entire planet." But as his ships moved away from Earth, they found that the planet was not going to let them escape easily. Clouds of mechanical spores followed them into space, eating away at their hulls. Energy beams reached up from the surface, guided by intelligence that seemed to know exactly where to strike. Earth had become more than just a world. It had become a living fortress, and it was fighting back with everything it had learned from 300 years of Kethfer technology. The war for Earth's freedom had begun. Admiral Vextar stared at the tactical display with growing horror. Half of his fleet was gone. The ships that remained were damaged and barely functional. The humans had not just defended themselves, they had turned Earth's entire biosphere into a weapon. "Admiral," reported his tactical officer, "we are detecting massive energy buildup on the planet's surface. It appears they are preparing for a counterattack." Vextar's claws clicked nervously against his command chair. This was not supposed to happen. The Kethfer were the most advanced species in this part of the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of worlds, but Earth was fighting back with technology that seemed impossible. On Earth's surface, Dr. Rachel Green stood in the control center of what had once been the Sahara Desert. The desert was no longer empty sand. It was now a vast network of biomechanical organisms that stretched across North Africa like a giant brain made of crystal and flesh. "Are the planetary defenses ready?" asked General Alex Carter over the communication system. Rachel looked at the displays around her. Every major landmass on Earth was connected to the defense network. Mountains that could fire energy beams into space. Oceans filled with creatures that could launch themselves like missiles. Even the clouds in the sky had been modified to carry weapons. All systems are active, Rachel replied. Operation Deep Strike is ready to begin. Then let's show these aliens what Earth can really do, the general said. The counterattack began with the sky itself. High above Earth's atmosphere, the planet's modified weather systems reached out toward the HFY fleet. What looked like normal clouds were actually swarms of microscopic machines, each one programmed to find and destroy alien technology. The first HFY ship to be hit reported strange readings. Admiral, something is eating through our hull. The damage is spreading like a disease. More ships reported similar problems. The mechanical spores were not just destroying the ships. They were learning from each ship they attacked, becoming better at finding weak points in HFY armor and shields. Full retreat, Admiral Vexstar ordered. All ships jumped to hyperspace immediately. But Earth was not finished with them yet. As the alien ships tried to escape, massive energy beams reached up from the planet's surface. These were not simple laser weapons. They were guided by an intelligence that could predict where the ships would try to go. One beam caught a HFY cruiser just as it was entering hyperspace. The ship was torn apart, its pieces scattered across space. Another beam disabled a transport ship, leaving it drifting helplessly on the flagship's bridge. Subcommander Zethlak approached Admiral Vexstar. The younger officer looked shaken by what he had seen on Earth's surface. Admiral Zethlak said quietly, "I request permission to attempt negotiations with the humans." Vexstar turned his yellow eyes toward his subordinate. "Negotiations? With primitives, sir? They are not primitives anymore. They have become something we do not understand. Something that may be more advanced than we are." Vexstar was silent for a long moment. Around them, damage reports continued to pour in from the remaining ships. The HFY fleet was broken, defeated by a species they had considered barely intelligent. "Do what you must," Vexstar said finally. "But if they refuse to negotiate, we will have no choice but to request reinforcements from the home fleet." Zethlak nodded and walked to the communication station. But before he could send a message to Earth, an incoming transmission appeared on the main screen. Dr. Maya Thompson sat in what looked like a garden, but the plants around her glowed with soft light and seemed to move on their own. She was Earth's chief Xena diplomat, and she had been waiting for this moment. "Subcommander Zethlak," she said with a gentle smile, "I believe it is time we talked." An hour later, Zethlak found himself back on Earth's surface, but this time, he was not in the biomechanical cities or factory complexes. Maya had invited him to meet in the ruins of what had once been Geneva, Switzerland. The meeting place was strange, but beautiful. Ancient human buildings stood alongside towering structures that seemed to be made of living crystal. Gardens filled with impossible plants grew between the ruins, and everywhere there was the soft sound of the planet itself breathing. "Why did you bring me here?" Zethlak asked as they walked through the crystal gardens. "Because this is where your people and mine first learned to work together," Maya replied. 300 years ago, the first HFY diplomatic mission landed in this city. They met with human leaders and decided to share their technology with us. "And you used that gift to turn your world into a weapon," Zethlak said bitterly. Maya stopped walking and turned to face him. "No, Subcommander, we used your gift to save our world. And in doing so, we created something new, something that has never existed before in the galaxy." She gestured to the buildings around them. As Zethlak watched, he realized that the structures were not just buildings. They were alive, growing and changing as he looked at them. The walls pulsed with a slow heartbeat. The windows blinked like eyes. "Your technology taught us that the line between machine and life is not as clear as we thought," Maya continued. so we erased that line completely. We created a civilization where technology and biology are the same thing. But at what cost? Zethlak demanded. Your people have changed themselves beyond recognition. Your planet has become a death world. That kills normal life forms. Maya nodded sadly. Yes, we paid a price, but we also gained something precious. We gained the ability to survive anything. And more than that, we gained a connection to our world that most species never experience. She placed her hand on one of the crystal trees. The tree responded by glowing brighter, and Zethlak could swear he heard it humming a soft melody. Your people see Earth as a corrupted version of what you left behind, Maya said. But we see it as evolution. We see it as the next step in the development of intelligent life. And what do you want from us? Zethlak asked. We want recognition, Maya replied. We want your people to accept that we are no longer the primitive species you remember. We are something new, something that deserves respect. Zethlak was quiet for a long time. Finally, he asked, and our technology, the research stations and equipment we left behind? Maya smiled. They are still here, but they are part of us now, part of Earth. We cannot give them back because they do not want to leave. As if to prove her point, a small mechanical creature scurried up to them. It looked like one of the original Kethver research drones, but it had been changed. Its metal shell was covered with organic tissue. Its sensors had been replaced with what looked like eyes. And when it looked at Zethlak, he could see intelligence there, not just programmed responses, but real thought. The drone chirped at Maya in a language that was part electronic beeps and part organic sounds. Maya nodded, as if she understood perfectly. It says it remembers your people, she translated. It says it is grateful for the gift of consciousness you gave it. But it also says it chooses to stay on Earth, where it can grow and learn and become more than it was designed to be. Zethlak stared at the little drone. In its modified eyes, he saw something that shocked him. He saw contentment. The machine was happy. How many others feel this way? He asked. All of them, Maya replied. Every piece of Kethver technology on Earth has become part of our hybrid civilization. They have all chosen to stay and evolve with us. Over the next several hours, Maya showed Zethlak more of Earth's transformation. He met humans who could communicate directly with machines through biological interfaces. He saw cities that could think and make decisions for themselves. He watched children playing with pets that were part animal and part computer. Most importantly, he met Captain Dan Foster, the commander of humanity's first interstellar vessel. The ship was a fusion of human creativity and Kethver engineering, but it was something entirely new. It could travel faster than any ship in the Kethver fleet, and it was capable of repairing and upgrading itself. We built it to explore the galaxy, Dan explained as they toured the ship. But we also built it to defend ourselves if necessary. Earth is ready to take its place among the starfaring civilizations, but we will not be anyone's subjects ever. Again, that evening, Zethlak sat in his shuttle, preparing to return to Admiral Vextor's flagship. But before he left, Maya gave him one final gift. It was a small crystal that pulsed with soft light. This contains a complete record of Earth's transformation, she explained. Show it to your leaders. Let them see what we have become. Maybe they will understand that we are not enemies. We are simply something new. When Zethlak presented the crystal to Admiral Vextor, the older Kethver studied it for a long time. The images it contained showed the complete history of Earth's evolution from a simple world to a living, thinking planet. This is unprecedented, Vextor admitted. An entire world that has achieved consciousness. Technology that has learned to reproduce and evolve. A species that has merged with its machines. What are your orders, sir? Zethlak asked. Vextor was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he made his decision. Send a message to Earth, he said. Tell them that the Kethfer fleet acknowledges Earth as an independent power. We will establish formal diplomatic relations and a trade agreement. And our technology? Zethlak asked. It has found a new home, Vexta replied. Perhaps it has found a better home than we ever gave it. 6 months later, Earth's first interstellar diplomatic mission